Imagine if paying off your debt could actually bankrupt you. Sounds insane, right? But that's exactly the paradox the United States faces today with its staggering $36.2 trillion national debt. I'm about to reveal why eliminating this debt could trigger the biggest economic collapse in modern history, and what this means for your wealth strategy. Welcome back to Luxona, where we decode the financial strategies of the world's wealthiest individuals and institutions. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most misunderstood aspects of global finance: why the United States, the world's largest economy, can't simply pay off its national debt. The numbers are staggering. As of May 2025, the US national debt has reached $36.2 trillion, representing 122% of the country's annual GDP. To put this in perspective, that's growing by approximately $1 trillion every 3 months. But here's the twist that most people don't understand. Paying this debt off completely could actually destroy the global financial system as we know it. Today, I'll explain this paradox, explore the new sovereign wealth fund strategy that President Trump has proposed, and most importantly, show you how understanding this dynamic can protect and grow your personal wealth. Let's start with a fundamental question. What exactly is the national debt, and why can't we just pay it off? The US national debt isn't like your credit card debt. It's actually the backbone of the global financial system. When the government issues treasury bonds, bills, and notes, these securities become the safest assets in the world. They're held by everyone, from individual retirees to foreign governments, from banks to pension funds. Here's the critical insight. US debt securities serve as the ultimate store of value for the global economy. They're used as collateral in trillions of dollars worth of transactions daily. Remove them from the system, and you'd create a massive liquidity crisis that would make 2008 look like a minor hiccup. Think of it this way. If US Treasury securities are the foundation of the global financial house, paying off the debt would be like removing the foundation while everyone's still living inside. But let's explore what would happen if we actually tried to pay it off. There are essentially 2 ways to eliminate $36.2 trillion in debt, and both lead to economic disaster. Option 1. Tax surpluses. The government could raise taxes and cut spending dramatically to generate massive surpluses. But extracting $36.2 trillion from the private economy would create the most severe economic contraction in history. We're talking about removing roughly 1.5 times the entire annual GDP from circulation. This would trigger unemployment rates not seen since the Great Depression and cause a deflationary spiral that could last decades. Option 2. Print the money. Alternatively, the Federal Reserve could simply create $36.2 trillion out of thin air to buy back all government bonds. But flooding the economy with that much new money would trigger hyperinflation. The dollar would collapse, international trade would grind to a halt, and the US would lose its status as the world's reserve currency. So if we can't pay off the debt, what's the solution? The answer lies in understanding that the goal isn't to eliminate debt, it's to manage it strategically. The key is maintaining a sustainable debt-to-GDP ratio. As long as the economy grows faster than the debt, the burden actually decreases over time. It's like having a mortgage on an appreciating property. The absolute amount might be large, but your ability to service it improves as your income grows. Currently, the US faces challenges because interest payments on the debt are projected to reach $952 billion in fiscal year 2025, climbing to $1.8 trillion by 2035. That's money that can't be spent on infrastructure, education, or other growth-driving investments. This is where the new sovereign wealth fund concept becomes fascinating. In February 2025, President Trump signed an executive order directing the creation of America's first sovereign wealth fund. This represents a fundamental shift in how the U.S. thinks about its fiscal future. Traditional sovereign wealth funds are investment vehicles used by governments to diversify their economies and generate returns for future generations. Norway's fund, built from oil revenues, now holds over $1.4 trillion. Singapore's GIC and Temasek have generated impressive returns for decades. The US approach would be different. Instead of being funded by natural resource revenues, it would likely be capitalized through a combination of asset sales, strategic borrowing, and potentially tariff revenues. The fund would then invest in both domestic and international assets, generating returns that could help offset the growing interest burden on the national debt. The beauty of a sovereign wealth fund lies in its potential to transform a liability into an asset. Here's how it could work. The fund could be initially capitalized through several mechanisms. The government could sell non-essential federal assets, issue bonds specifically for investment purposes, or use revenues from tariffs and trade policies. Trump has suggested the fund could even be used to acquire strategic assets like TikTok, turning geopolitical concerns into investment opportunities. Unlike traditional government spending, which is consumed immediately, a sovereign wealth fund invests for long-term returns. The fund could invest in domestic infrastructure projects that generate revenue, technology companies that drive innovation, or international markets that offer diversification. The most powerful aspect is compounding. If the fund generates returns higher than the government's borrowing costs, it creates a positive feedback loop. A 7% annual return on a $1 trillion fund generates $70 billion yearly, money that can either reduce the effective debt burden or fund additional investments. Perhaps most importantly, the fund provides strategic flexibility. During economic downturns, it can be a stabilizing force. During growth periods, it can accelerate development. It essentially gives the US government the investment sophistication that wealthy individuals and family offices have used for generations. Understanding this debt dynamic isn't just academic. It has profound implications for your personal wealth strategy. Despite the large debt, the dollar's role as the global reserve currency remains secure precisely because of the debt's function in the financial system. However, the sovereign wealth fund represents a hedge against future dollar weakness. By diversifying into global assets, the US reduces its dependence on pure dollar dominance. The sectors where the sovereign wealth fund invests are likely to see increased capital and growth. Technology, infrastructure, and energy are prime candidates. Savvy investors should monitor the fund's investment thesis and consider parallel strategies. For high-net-worth individuals, the lessons are clear. Just as the US is diversifying through a sovereign wealth fund, you should diversify across asset classes, geographies, and currencies. The wealthy don't put all their eggs in one basket. Neither should nations. While the US won't hyperinflate by paying off its debt, the ongoing money creation and debt monetization create inflationary pressures. Real assets, international investments, and inflation-protected securities become crucial components of a defensive portfolio. The US debt situation perfectly illustrates a fundamental principle of wealth management. It's not about eliminating all debt. It's about using debt strategically to build wealth. The proposed sovereign wealth fund represents the government finally adopting the same sophisticated approach that wealthy families have used for centuries. The key takeaway for your personal wealth strategy is this: understand the system, don't fight it. The US debt isn't going away, and that's actually a good thing for global financial stability. But the government's new approach to wealth building through strategic investment should inspire your own portfolio diversification. Remember, the wealthiest individuals and institutions don't just save money, they deploy capital strategically across time and geography. The US Sovereign Wealth Fund is essentially the government learning to think like a family office. If you're serious about building generational wealth and understanding the financial strategies that drive global markets, make sure to subscribe to Luxona. We decode these complex financial systems so you can apply their principles to your own wealth-building journey. Hit that notification bell, and I'll see you in the next video where we'll explore how sovereign wealth funds are reshaping global investment flows and what opportunities that creates for individual investors. Luxona, where millionaires are made.